You know what I love? I love pushing my creative boundaries and working outside of my comfort zone and working with a wide range of kitchen styles. We have this awesome mix of clients in the studio right now with kitchens ranging from ultra modern to downright traditional. So in light of that, I thought it would be a perfect time to jump into a pseudo mini series, if you will, examining the elements that go into various kitchen styles, starting with the classic kitchen. Welcome to HS Design Studio, and if you're new around here, we chat about all things kitchen design, and some of the things that are tangentially related to it, but kind of still applicable. So, as I mentioned earlier, this is probably going to be the first in a bit of a mini-series where we take a look at the different kitchen styles. So, what exactly is a classic kitchen? Caesar Stone describes it as, "Classic kitchens are designed to be timeless, simple, and fresh, rather than dark, complicated, and traditional." Now that's a pretty big blanket statement, and so are many of the other definitions out there, and really I find it hard to define a particular style with just words when in reality it's a collection of elements that are pieced together. So without further ado, let's dive in, with the first thing up being neutral cabinets. Although whites are particularly popular when it comes to neutral kitchen cabinets, and you know what, rightly so, if you're after a broad audience or wide appeal, it's hard to go wrong. However, that's not your only option. Any neutral base, be it off-whites, creams or beiges, grays, even pale blues or greens, can all be the perfect base for a classic kitchen, and they give you a chance to express a bit of personality into the space as well. When I'm thinking about neutral colors for a classic kitchen design, I like to think of earthier tones, those that are commonly found in nature. These provide a warm and comforting feel when you enter the space, making it feel homely and inviting. In the case of the classic kitchen, your cabinets aren't meant to be a showpiece or a focal point of the kitchen. Instead, they're going to form the base or the foundation for the rest of the elements that are going to go into the space. Then we have the style of door front, and more often than not, you find a shaker style cabinet door in these classic kitchens. However, that being said, you are able to use a flat panel design if you opt for an inset construction. Shaker style door fronts fall under a pretty wide variety of kitchen styles, and I think this has to do with the fact that they are more of a timeless design and aesthetic as opposed to that of something more trendy. And although we're starting to see a shift away from that all painted kitchen to one that includes some natural wood tones, the underlying elements really remain the same. Now, I find visuals a lot easier to portray concepts like this, so let's take a look at a few examples. This kitchen is a perfect example of a classic kitchen. If we focus on the two elements we have discussed so far, you can see how they used an earthy and neutral color for the cabinets with simple shaker style doors. In this case, they opted for dark gray, which helped ground the overall design. The second kitchen here is a good example of a classic design with modern touches. Once again, we find neutral colored cabinets with a simple shaker style door. To modernize the design, they have also included some natural textures and tones in the wood and rattan or wicker chairs, as well as the bold black appliances. That's our base to the kitchen. So now we need to start building up the rest of the design elements, starting with some simple architectural details. These details are added throughout the space to add character and a feeling of permanence. We often see it in the form of crown molding or island legs or corbels. We'll see it in furniture style toe kicks or even paneled range hoods. It is important to keep these details subdued, even restrained if you will, in the classic kitchen style. When those details start becoming too ornate or eye-catching and they in themselves start becoming a focal point, the whole design will start shifting towards the traditional spectrum. This kitchen uses several of those simple architectural details. First in the crown molding, it's on the smaller side and simple in design, but still gives the cabinets and kitchen the feeling of completeness as it ties the cabinets into the ceiling. Instead of a large crown, they opted to start with a flat panel and then added crown molding on top. Then there is the simple arch between the cabinets over the window, tying the two sides of the kitchen together. Finally, we see the simple details in the island framing, a cutout to match the shaker doors, and a coved trim piece for an extra element of detail. Then we move on to countertops, where we're looking for simple, dependable, one of those classic materials that often gives a feeling of enduring permanence. Ideally, you would gravitate towards materials like marble or soapstone, maybe even granite. However, as we found out in our countertop series a few months back, those finishes aren't for everyone. In most cases, the classic kitchen uses Carrara or Calcutta marble as the focal point of the space. Both of these feature that somewhat translucent appearance with gray veining. On the other hand, don't be afraid to go down the darker route with honed black countertops, whether it be soapstone or granite. The goal here is to achieve a natural aesthetic, something in the whites to grays or dark blacks palette. Therefore, you can choose a quartz or a porcelain, a man-made material, in place of those natural stones, as long as you get that look and character that you would typically find in something like a marble or soapstone. Moving up the wall onto the backsplash, we find subway tile as one of the most common options here. Now, hold on, wait. Before you tear me apart in the comments because you absolutely hate or maybe love subway tile, hear me out. This doesn't have to be that standard flat 3x6 subway tile. In fact, the size doesn't really matter, although too large can become off-putting. It can be flat, glossy, cracked, speckled, textured, beveled, handmade, machine-made, hand-painted, or even natural stone. Really, the goal here is that rectangular or square shape in a white or gray color palette. It's also worth keeping in mind the size of the tile, the spacing, the color of the grout, as all of those will impact the overall look of the design. And finally, if you're just not into subway tile, opt for some of the more traditional patterns like herringbone or basket weave, because they'll work just as well. Elegant fixtures and finishes. This is all of those remaining elements that go into making up the overall design. The icing on the cake, if you will. It all starts with your cabinet hardware. And if you looked at a lot of the kitchens we examined, if you looked at them closely while the pictures were up, you would have noticed they all used very similar hardware. Solid feeling pulls in very bold colors like black, gold, or copper. Now, as I've talked about before, don't be afraid to mix up your pulls as well. A combination of pulls or knobs can work in a kitchen as long as the two different styles complement one another. Then you have your light fixtures and lighting in general. Now, I've talked about how easy it is to overlook lighting when it comes to kitchen design and how important it is, so I'm not going to go into that again. However, our kitchens aren't just used for cooking anymore, they're also used for gathering or relaxing. Therefore, you want your kitchen to be bright and bold when you're in there to work. However, you want to be able to make it subtle and muted when you want some ambiance. Don't just throw a light up in the center of your kitchen and call it good. Put a little more thought into this portion of the design. Now, there is no single solution to kitchen lighting. Every space is unique in its own right, in one way or another. Whether it's sconces in one area, or pendants, or how you do the recessed lighting, it really changes from space to space. However, what I like to do is find a light fixture or light fixtures that'll add a little bit of personality and character to the space, while still making sure that they're going to be functional when you're in there to work. Finally, the kitchen faucet. Classic kitchen designs typically use a faucet that has a rounded neck design. Single hole faucets tend to blend into the space a little bit more seamlessly, where a bridge style faucet that uses 2 or 3 holes develops a bit more of a focal point. Goal is to have all of these finishes work together to form a cohesive look. They all don't need to be the same finish, mixing metals is fine, but the shape or form, the characteristics of each element should be similar. Take this kitchen for example. The main foundation of the kitchen is made up of classic white shaker cabinets, simple crown molding, and trim details in the island. The finishes are a mix of black and brushed nickel, and there are both knobs and pulls. Yet they all use a similar soft, rounded look to keep the design harmonious. Let's throw one more bonus in here and talk about flexibility. Classic kitchens are kind of like chameleons. It's really easy to swap out a few of those design elements and completely change the look of the space. This is why I think classic kitchens are so popular or so attractive, because it's really easy or relatively easy to keep them from looking dated. This particular kitchen is rooted in classic design. White shaker cabinets, simple cove crown molding, island details in both the legs and the toe kicks, even the glass cabinet doors. However, the lighting, the cabinet hardware, the faucet, even the bar stools all have a modern feel with the stainless steel finish and leather seats. Yet, a simple element like the glass and the pendant lighting is enough to tie it all back into the classic design style. It is hard to sit here and pinpoint out specific elements that make up a kitchen style, or a style of any room for that matter. After all, it's a collection of elements, a collection of features that help pull that whole design together. If there are any particular kitchen design styles you want to talk about, make sure to leave them down below and I'll include them on the list. That brings us to the end of this video. Thanks a ton for joining me this week. Until next time, bye-bye.